Africa Independent Television.
AIT, sharing the African experience.
Thank you for your attention, and we wish you a very pleasant flight.
Male and female, the stories are the same. However, women and girls are in the majority. They all want a better life, more than they have experienced in their communities. All that we are not told was that the grass is only greener where it is watered.
I entered Libya through one of my brother friend. We bring Percy come. He tell me say the person they carry people go Italy. And you know, so nobody will want to hear about it, they will not go happy to go. And the way the person talk to me, it motivate me to say, oh yeah, today, just enter road, they go.
According to a UNESCO report, human trafficking is the third most common crime in Nigeria after drug trafficking and economic fraud. Estimates released by the Global Slavery Index in July 2018 indicate that there are 40.3 million victims of modern slavery worldwide. 71% of whom are women and girls, and 25% of which are children.
Came to our compound, met my mother. I was not telling my mom about outside country, that her wife is there, she's doing nanny food, she's cooking for the white people, that he would like me to go and stay with her over there. I will make much money. In like 2 months or so, I will come back and get some things, build house for my mother.
In 2016, Nigerians accounted for about 21% of the total 181,000 migrants arriving into Italy through the Mediterranean Sea. United Nations International Organization for Migration, IOM, further reports that as of December 2020, there were approximately 570,000 migrants in Libya, of which Nigerians represented approximately 6%. Between July 2003 and December 2019, National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, has rescued a total of 14,688 victims of human trafficking. Nigeria remains a source, transit, and destination country when it comes to human trafficking. According to the United Nations, human trafficking can be defined as
act of recruitment, transportation, harboring of a person through the means of deceit, through the means of fraud, deception, and using the position of a person for vulnerability, basically for the purpose of exploitation. And when we are looking at exploitation, we are looking at exploitation which could be sexual exploitation, labor exploitation, and all variants of human trafficking, of child abuse, and the rest.
I was told by a friend that I was to go to school abroad and get a job and all of that. I was taken to Germany. On reaching Germany, it was more of you have to choose either sex exploitation or sex slavery or carrying of drugs.
Simply, we can look at human trafficking as the illegal movement of a person from one place to another for unwholesome practice for exploitation. So it's a very simple definition that we can now look at and say, why is it that we're having it? We're having it because the end result is exploitation.
500,000 maybe say They will tell me, say, I go pay for Nigeria here. When I reach there, I go pay ×2. Now, which is the person will be say, I pay almost 1 million giver. The house when I stay, I pay 1 million giver. Because why? Let me as you say, a month, say maybe I work 500,000. And the person when he get me, when he buy me, he go get 250. One person when me they stay for a years, they work the money, he go get 250.
So when you look at human trafficking, you can see that it has 2 types. We have internal and external. In that external is when the crime is being committed within the country. Then external trafficking has to do with outside the shores of the country. And for the crime of human trafficking to be committed, there must be 3 elements that are involved: the act, the means, and the purpose. Under the act, there is act of recruitment, transportation, harbor, purchase of that individual. Under the means, we have deception as a means. We have coercion as a means. We have debt bondage as a means. Then the final element is the purpose, which is exploitation.
You have a trafficker within a community who has either a niece and she paints a juicy story to the family of this niece. Sometimes you have a trafficker go to her church member and paint a very juicy story to this church member. Oh, there's a job abroad, there is this, there is that. You go there, you trade, you school, you earn money, you send money back to your family members. And the family of this victim believe all these stories because, of course, they are not able to meet up with life. They do not have the finances, they do not have the means. Some of them have never even been to the state capital of the state they are residents in. So they do not even know if these stories are true or they are lies. And they believe it and they are moved. Some of these victims are informed that they are going to Lagos, maybe from Abeokuta, for example. They are moving to Lagos to work and to, but before you know it, their traffickers move them from Abeokuta there to either Libya, to Italy, to Burkina Faso, different countries, and the main families are not even aware that their children are not within the shores of the country. It is maybe after some months they receive phone calls from these children who now inform their parents that, oh, we are in so country, we have not been able to reach you, we are being used for prostitution.
So she worked my paper and took me out. On getting there, she now told me that she welcomed me very well. After the welcome, she asked me to strip myself naked. When I stripped myself, she now said, like, this is what the white men are looking for. I don't understand what she was saying back then. So she took me out, bought some sexy things, clothes for me. She now took me to a club. That this is where I'll be working. I was like, I'll be making hair for the girls. She said no. That the way they had, that is how I will look like.
And you have a case where they are moved from Abeokuta to Lagos and are supposed to be working in Lagos. But they are moved to Lagos and they are taken into a brothel, or they are distributed among family members to work as house help. And whoever brought them in is taking the proceeds of this trade. For the victims who are used for sexual exploitation, sometimes their traffickers recruit them and bring them to Lagos. Sometimes they are even moved to Edo, different states of the nation, and they are being exploited sexually. Sometimes they are sold out to their end users. So you don't link the recruiter and the end user. So when they are sold out, the job of the recruiter ends because he has earned his own money, and the end user now is at liberty, so to speak, to use and and use this victim until she is satisfied. And most times, you can imagine where a victim is sexually exploited for 3 years, day in, day out. When she is through, I think the rest, you can imagine the state of that victim, her mentality and everything would have changed about life. Some of them don't even live to testify the stories they went through.
The story of human trafficking is incomplete without the trafficker, who employs the 3 elements of human trafficking against the victims. One then begins to wonder, what is the motivation?
A trafficker is somebody who is involved directly or indirectly in either coercing or deceiving people to move from their location for the person's personal gain. It can be within the country or outside the country. So the trafficker is the person responsible. He may be the one that will foot the bills and make other arrangements for that person to get to the destination which he or she desire.
He put us in a bus. We now travel by ourselves. So when we got into Lagos, he gave us a name like that when reaching Lagos, we will say, we're going to say a woman that is waiting for us here in Lagos. And then we contacted her. From there, we now got to the woman. The woman from there now took us to Cotonou. From there, he made us the passports that we used to travel. The woman started liking us. That she was just telling that if at all we had to work for her, that we should have started work this evening. So at least we were confused that what type of work is that one? So it was from there. The woman now called us, was telling us that there is no nanny work, or there is no, we are not coming here to cook for anybody. That we are coming here is either we choose prostitution or using girl to shoot and collect money.
An average human trafficker is a human being like you and I. Sometimes when they are apprehended and you get the weight of evidence off them, you are alarmed because you wonder why a human being would do these evil acts to his or her fellow human being. So I think there's nothing spectacular about how a trafficker looks and how they act.
The person will come as if he or she is helping you. The motto which they use is deception before departure. They will entice you with all what they have. Once you get to their trap, you become their prey. Whatever thing they ask you to do, you do it for their sole advantage. So these traffickers are not, they are not spirits, they are not ghosts. They are still people around us. Some of them are family members, our friends.
We have a family friend whom my mom supported when she had nobody to take care of her. So when she came to visit, she saw I was making hair and I was perfect in it. She now told my mom that if I should go outside the country, I will make money with the hair I'm making. My mom now supported it.
Several factors have been identified to aid the activities of the trafficker, which has lured thousands of young people into forced migration and human trafficking.
All our hobbies say, okay, the airport, they carry us, they go. And the motor drive, said, look, I reach Niger. We reach Niger now. And then one of us call as the master, Oga, where you call the carriers, they go. We know they reach, you want for enter play. Let the man call laugh. Because say, when this one, when we did so, na Libya, now we they go. Let the man call tell us, say, any of us we want us who won't go back from here now. All the money will be say in those spend. We go have to pay. And everybody will not know where the carriers pass. We not get money. We be say it does spend. So because of the pressure where the man put for her body, we can say okay, since it be like that, more years better since we already start the journey. Cause that Niger almost 2 weeks Or a drink arena, so Gary with a drink. We know if they come outside, nothing. We all day inside one room. If we want eat or we want peace, we first take permission for the man hand before they'll call put up for us. Why may the police of that Niger make them not fit catch us?
When we are talking about the factor, for us in NAPTIP, they are what we can call the influencers of human trafficking. And for us, we look at it as the pull and the push factors. And when we are looking at the pull factors, we are looking at those preponderances that are internal to make somebody to be trafficked.
Factors that make them leave their state of origin. First is unemployment. People are not employed in this country. Majority of our youths are not employed. So they tend to migrate to look for greener pastures. That's one factor.
And then I would also say poverty. Poverty creeps into wanting to seek help from other people. So in the midst of wanting to seek help, there's that place of wanting to do anything just because the person is poor.
We have a family of 10. The father is a farmer, the wife is a trader. Children are there. They can barely eat. So those kind of people when the trafficker comes and look at those vulnerable families, they can quickly give out their children for them to be trafficked. Then you have a family pressure. When family members, they look at their mates or they look at their peers and say they can't start comparing their words with other youngsters that have made it, in quotes. They don't even know how they have got it and all that. They can be making instances of fine buildings in Benin. So you see your mate, they were the one that erected this building. So I can't be here while you are still with me eating. So you need to fend for yourself. So you have family pressure. Some even go as far as selling their farmlands, inherited buildings for their wards to travel on this journey or to be trafficked.
Issues of greed, issue of disposition of the victims that I want to go and hustle, I want to go and make money. Then in the area of greed, you look at it that a certain member of a family has been promised financial reward. And because of that financial reward, because of that his own greed, he will do anything to make sure that that girl, that boy is taken out from the parent. And then when you now look at the other factors, the push factors, we'll be looking at factors like the high demand for illicit sex, the growth in the entertainment industry, the high rate of currency. Because when these girls, small girls and boys are taken away, they want to make their monies in dollar, they want to make their money in euro and all the rest. You can never match the rate of exchange of euro and dollar with our Nigerian money.
You have perceived opportunity elsewhere. They all perceive that it would be better if I leave this country. Then again, you have political and social stability, good health care system, good welfare system, employment and all that.
They are also not clear about what they also want. Of course, livelihood opportunities. So traffickers understand what family want to hear. Traffickers understand what community want to see. So they come in with flashy cars, come in with all kinds of big promises. And because they are familiar with this family, they already know what to tell these families. So they lure them. First, they can say, okay, because you are a young person, if you have skills in football or in sport, they use sports. If you are a young person who is very beautiful, they use modeling as a tool to lure you to say, okay, there are better life, there are better opportunity. Of course, inflation is also part of it.
You'll be looking at globalization as also a factor. So a lot of things are combined. Then we also look at the role our juju people play, the role our juju priests play, because psychologically they have changed the mental orientation of our victims. so that they can be able to take them out. And the essence of this juju or taking oath is that they actually want to get their cooperation, so that when their madam take them out, they will be able to pay him or pay her whatever is the amount that he has said they are going to pay her.
The major thing that is fueling the issue of human trafficking in those states, I think, is a cultural issue. If you, as a family, don't have a child abroad, you are not considered a family that have good prospects or so. You don't have social status, let me use the word, yes, social status. For example, you could see among the market women, if you go out right now, statistic is still there, but it's not as loud as before, where market women brag to tell you that my daughter or my son is abroad, according to the normal Benin balance, it kind of means my child is living abroad or my child is abroad, okay? It means it's in the land of the whites, so to say. So that alone gives you who don't have your child there a kind of, maybe it lowers your self-esteem. And then somebody comes to tell you in the market that, hey, there's somebody I know who is taking people out there. You don't have to pay much money. You just maybe sell your father's house or sell your husband's property, raise the money, look at how much you're looking for. And then you now want to do that because at the end of the day, you also, when your neighbor is speaking or your fellow market woman is speaking, you can also say, hey, my child has gone too. You understand? So we are the same.
Some of them also leave the shores of the country, not because of greener pastures, because of other things. Like, let me bring this one in. There are a lot of persons that traveled for survival. The survivor is not because I want to live a good life, but I want to stay alive. Maybe this is mainly from the angle of those that were involved in courtism. When there is a clash between two court groups, and it's always intense. So every one of them want to run out so that they will not become the victim of the clash. That have also contributed a lot to this irregular migration that has resulted to trafficking.
Who is a victim?
I have met a whole lot of victims, but I'm going to pick one who came in from Libya. So let's call her Faith. Faith was taken to Libya with the promise of going over to Europe. And guess the promise, you're going to work in a salon doing hair, and because you're so skilled, you're going to make so much money. Faith comes in, she's taken all the way to Libya, and then when she gets there, first off, the journey. Faith had to go by road. Then on the way, going through the desert before you get to Libya, where she is now sold, physically sold to someone else. Now, imagine if you were Faith. First off, you didn't tell me the journey was going to be so tedious in me. And then after facing the days where I go without water, the days where even the people who were traveling with her, the trolleys, slept with her. You didn't tell her that was going to happen. Then she gets to Libya and you actually sold her like a goat. Her self-worth. Think of her self-worth. Think of the fact that you have demoralized her trust in humanity. Think of her rights that you have already violated along the way. Now let's go to her health. She's now sold off and she's used sexually. She doesn't decide who sleeps with her. She doesn't decide even the sanity or the cleanliness of that person. She has to open up to anyone. And then she comes home with sexually transmitted diseases. She has to face that. Now, think of the PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder Faith has to go through. She can't even trust any man anymore. Her relationship with any other human being has been jeopardized. Now think of Faith trying to find herself within her family circle without thinking of the shame of anyone telling her true story and her true experience. How will she come back to being the Faith that left the shores of Nigeria? How? How will she come back to being that trusting young lady who thought that she will make it and become somebody? and then affect her own people positively. But she has been affected negatively. How? What about the time of her life that has been lost? What about the path that she had to go through? What about the tears she shed and nobody was there to give her a hug and comfort her? What would you do about that? Now that is the effect this journey has had on Faith. And she's now coming back. She has a disease. How will she face the world and say, I'm dying? Can you help me? Is anyone ready to listen to Faith? What about the stigma of many people who say, after all, she knew what she was going there to do. They know, don't mind them. They know. Sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they don't know. In fact, most times they don't know. Now, let's even leave Faith. What about a true prostitute who decides to go on this journey? But on the streets of Lagos, she decides who goes home with her. She decides how much money she's going to make from every transaction. But now you have her on this path and somebody else decides who she sleeps with and takes the money and denies her the right to her own sweat and pain. How do you deal with that? How do you fix that break in her mind and even her relationship with humanity?
There are thousands of Faith in the streets of Europe, Middle East, and even Africa, crying for help. What then are the solution to their desire for freedom, reuniting, and reintegration?
We need to get back to our roots again. We have found out that families in the past and families present, some, not all, are no longer families and parents to their children. Most of them are friends with their children. They cannot tell their children the truth. They lie to them. They encourage them to do evil things. I remember growing up, my mother could not tell me when I was going into the boarding house that I would get pregnant if a boy touches me. She could not explain sex to me at the age of 10. But these days, mothers encourage their children to prostitute and bring money in. So some parents have not done well presently. The churches have not also helped us. They have shied away. So many of the churches, many of the pastors have shied away from the truth. With corruption growing in leaps and bounds in our country, also plays a major role in these indecent lives that we are living. We adore wealth that we don't know how people got to. We see people driving Rolls Royce, we see them driving Lexus. How did they get them? Most of them steal. And we encourage our own children to be like them. When we are being raised, all they told us was education is the key to our success. Not the number of cars people are driving. Not by the number of houses people build. It's education, education, education. And that is what is missing in some of our parents today. So we really need to go back to our roots. Where parents have to be parents, to raise their children with core values. And the government needs to do a lot as well. With corruption, insecurity, if we can get those two out, we will be back to what our country used to be. We'll be able to raise our children properly.
As a return, as a family, we need to embrace them. Because these victims, they've gone through a lot. They need support, family support, community support. They need everybody to rally around them so that they can be able to stabilize and be functional members of the family again. So it should be a joint effort by everybody that once these victims, they return, even the migrants, they come back with nothing, with illness, they should be supported by their family members and the community they come from at large.
If we're going to look at how to mitigate, what are the solutions? What is the way forward? You can't plan a way forward without actually looking at what were the push factors. Why did Faith leave? What was her story? What was that gap that had to be filled? Now, many run to poverty as a push factor in human trafficking. Very true. But I always say, what kind of poverty? Most times it might be poverty in the area of knowledge. Many do not know the true situation of things, even in the country you want to go to. Most of the victims are taken away through irregular migration, meaning they are traveling without the right documents. They are going through paths that even the immigration officers might not know because we have porous borders. They are going through paths to ensure that the border patrol will not get to them. So there's nobody to even talk to along those paths. So it might be ignorance. It is time that we involve everybody. Everybody has to be involved because human trafficking is a social issue. It deals with your state of mind. It deals with your understanding and your plans of what you want your life to be. You want greener pastures, yes, but is the grass really greener where you're going to? How do I get there? What is the best way to actually get there and get what I plan on getting for myself and not what somebody else plans to get from me? So we need education. We need to educate our people, change their mindsets. Going abroad might not be the answer that you seek. The answer that you seek might actually be within your community. Then we need to get community involvement. We have communities who actually have resources within them. If you have a community, for example, that produces shea butter, if we can have people who will invest in those communities and you have a cottage industry and those people are employed and they produce shea butter and you are able to even, instead of exporting your human beings, export the shea butter. Is that not better for us as a nation? We need all stakeholders on ground to join hands. Because it's a societal issue, it's a social issue, it's not just one answer, it's a network of answers. If every strata of society and every institution, poverty alleviation, ITF does something about it, the police is doing something about it, the local government is doing something about it. Make sure you identify this is an area we want to make sure that our youths and our children are empowered. They are engaged. Give them self-worth. Give them something to do with their hands. Keep them engaged. Maybe abroad will not be the greener pastures anymore. Nigeria might be the next best place to get to.
I want to tell the public that whatever form, whatever style the trafficker may come with, they should say no to human trafficking. I want to let them know that at times, the way the bitter cola sounds in the ear is not how it tastes in the mouth.
Stop human trafficking. Africa Independent Television.
AIT, sharing the African experience.